Hi, everyone, and welcome to Discover E Engineering's Chat with Changemakers. I'm your host, Enrique, and I'm a 10th grader in Florida and president of my school's Chef Junior chapter, which is the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. Each month, I welcome a different guest from the engineering community. Today, I am chatting with Zita Holland. Zita is an agricultural engineer at John Deere. Zita, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm going to kick things off by asking Zita a few questions to get to know a little bit more about her. You can ask questions by typing in your questions in the Q&A box below, and we'll save time to answer as many as we can. Okay, so let's get started. So, Zita, can you share your journey that led you to the current role at John Deere, starting from the initial position as a product engineer?
Yeah, so I actually started in our engine division, first as a summer intern when I was in college. After I graduated with my engineering degree, I was working on engines we already were making to make them better and more efficient. After that, I moved to specialize in crank train design, which is the system with the crankshaft, the connecting rods, and the pistons. I worked in our current production design teams at the factory before then moving over to our analysis teams. I built the computer models to help predict how crank train designs would behave in real life. And then about 7 years ago, I took a chance on something completely new and different and moved to the tractor division to start doing compliance engineering work. I thought that it sounded really exciting to work on a whole tractor and get to work with governments around the world. I am part of a wider team of engineers that help our agricultural vehicle design groups make sure that they are considering safety requirements, national and international standards, and then any specific rules for compliance with each country's laws.
Wow, that all sounds super interesting for sure. And what does a typical day at work look like?
So, my day can usually be broken up into about three different parts. First of all, I talk a lot to our other safety standards and compliance experts so that we can pool our knowledge and our experience about different topics that we're working on. We all actually sit around the world, so that's usually most of my morning so that they can go home on time. And then I work with the design teams in my own building to help understand how we are going to meet compliance rules for new projects. This includes going to design reviews or meeting with our test engineers to talk about future plans. This is usually most of the middle of my day. And then the last thing doesn't always happen, but sometimes I have to go try something out on a real tractor. This is a lot of fun and it always makes it a good day.
That definitely sounds like a busy day for sure. And what other types of engineers, technicians, and other roles do you work with?
Yeah, so one of the great things about my role is that I get to see a project from start to finish. So this means I work with our system engineers when they are just starting to think about new ideas or new projects. Once we get into a project, I work with our design and test engineers a lot. When designing a whole vehicle, we need a lot of different kinds of engineering experts for all the different systems in the vehicle. So I work with people who have a background in aerospace engineering, mechanical engineering, agricultural engineering, electrical engineering, and computer science, to name a few of the big ones. After we design and build our vehicle, we have to get it to our customers in each country and then support them. So I also work with our marketing teams and our factory production group to make sure that we are delivering vehicles with all of the right options to each country. And most of those people, they have business degrees. And the last group I work with are the teams that make sure that our documentation, like our owner's manuals, have all of the required information to help our customers use our products. These groups have a variety of backgrounds, such as technology or technical writing degrees.
Wow, it sounds like you've definitely worked on a lot of different projects. Out of all of those, which projects are the most challenging that you've worked on?
So I have a good story. I really like it. When I was working for our engine division, we heard about some engines that had their pistons that were getting really dirty and they weren't really working very well the way we wanted them to. Pictures and emailing the customer back and forth wasn't really solving the issue. So the customer had to send the parts back to so that a team of engineers and expert technicians at our factory could look at the bad parts. And we ended up having to run a lot of tests because at first we weren't really sure what had happened. I was on the team that finally figured out what the problem was, and we could send them new parts and a customer support expert to help the customer repair their engines and then learn how to run the engines so that the problem wouldn't happen again. The thing is that some villages in Alaska use electric generators with our John Deere engines in them to make the power for their village. This customer was one of those villages. So I was on a team that literally turned the lights back on in people's homes. Knowing that people were depending on us to figure this out quickly was pretty challenging, but it was really satisfying when we figured out what to do.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine you felt like you made an impact to that community in Alaska. From your experience as an engineer, what is the most surprising piece of knowledge that you can think of that not many people may know about?
To me, the most surprising piece of engineering knowledge is that communication is actually more important to engineering than math. I think most of us get into engineering or other STEM fields because we think that if we do all the calculations, there will be one perfect correct answer and it will be obvious to everybody, which sounds amazing. But real engineering designs are the ones that look at what everyone involved needs and figures out a way to balance everything. So while a lot of people think that engineering is sitting at a desk by yourself with a calculator and all your textbooks, it's actually communication that makes designs come to life. If you think you have the answer, but you don't know how to tell anyone that answer, then nothing will ever happen.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I've observed in the past, where a lot of people that come and I talk to, they always say that communication is the main thing in engineering, and I can't agree with you more. And for my other question is, how do you foster collaboration between design teams and the compliance departments to ensure both innovation and adherence to safety standards?
I loved this question. I think to foster collaboration, you have to be ready to ask questions and always assume that everyone wants to do the right thing. And this isn't just at work. Every day, people come to work with their best ideas, which we have to review against all of these standards and all of these other design requirements. Sometimes someone can have an idea and other people don't immediately understand or agree. Maybe because it's too new, or they don't have the background information to understand, or just have different experiences. It is really easy to get frustrated, but it's important to realize that they just might not be coming at the problem from the same direction you are. Assuming that they want the best for the design as well, and then starting your questions from there gets everyone on the same page. With that said, it does help to have a set of rules to help with communication. Good collaboration between the design and the compliance teams comes down to good processes to give us that framework to talk to each other. We are an old company. There isn't much that hasn't happened before here, and engineers love to document and improve things. So we have a lot of knowledge from the people that came before us, how we share ideas, how we test things, who needs to be involved when we make decisions. All of that is written down in processes. Even when we are trying something completely new, we have our past to guide us. And having good documentation and communication processes that have worked before means that we can focus on innovating the technology to solve our customers' biggest questions and know that if we follow the steps, it will lead us to success.
Definitely, that sounds all super interesting and intriguing for sure. We also have our first Q&A question from an eighth grade science class in Virginia. Wants to know if there are other products at John Deere that you work on or that your colleagues work on.
That's a good question. I think when a lot of people think of John Deere, they think of the big green and yellow tractors out in the middle of a cornfield, which is totally fair. That's actually what I personally work on most days. And then what they think is, I don't live in the country. I've never been on a farm. So I don't know how John Deere really impacts me. But I have seen John Deere loaders clearing snow at the airport in Chicago, John Deere gators in Central Park in New York City, and even those same big green tractors on Miami Beach in Florida cleaning the sand. Everyone needs agricultural products for food, for clothes, for shelter. Not only that, John Deere also makes construction equipment from articulated dump trucks to road milling machines. So no matter where you live, it is a sure bet that a John Deere product is making a real impact in your life.
Wow. And on the topic of that, how do you envision the future of agriculture machinery in terms of safety and compliance and technological advancements?
Okay. I would say that the two biggest answers here have got to be autonomy and fuels. People may think that there isn't anything new about how to grow a crop, but that is absolutely not true. As I just said, everyone in the world needs agricultural products. So the best minds in the world spend a lot of time figuring out how we can grow crops better for everyone. John Deere believes that our products help feed the world, and we are going to need some new ideas to get there. Autonomous cars may be new and get a lot of attention, but agricultural products are in the autonomy space too. In fact, ag vehicles have been using technologies such as GPS to provide steering assistance to our operators for decades. Now, we're seeing the first autonomous ag vehicles and tractors come onto the market. These are coming in all different sizes to help with different crops and with different jobs. Along with this, the ag industry is writing standards to help manufacturers agree on how people will interact with vehicles running in autonomous modes in the future. The second big technology that's the big up and coming thing is fuels. As I said before, everyone in the world needs agricultural products, so our vehicles have to work in a large variety of locations and environments. In some places, traditional diesel vehicles make sense because diesel is the easiest fuel for those operators to get. In other parts of the world, other fuels, such as electricity, are going to make more sense. So we are seeing companies like John Deere developing vehicles that can use battery technology. Tractors are giant mobile power units. So unlike cars, getting somewhere is only half the battle. This means that alternative fuel solutions will be unique to the ag sector. And again, companies and research institutions have to work together to agree on standards that work for our designs and our own customers.
Yeah, I know I've seen a lot of in the news John Deere working on their autonomous tractors and other agricultural vehicles, all super interesting stuff to look at. I understand that you're a member of the ASABE, which is the American Society of Agriculture and Biological Engineers. Can you tell us more about your involvement there?
I would love to. My involvement kind of falls into two different parts. So the first part of being an ag industry engineer in this industry for so many years, plus being in the compliance role that I'm in, I am now one of the people that help write and update standards when we have new technologies being invented. ASABE is the primary organization that supports the development and distribution of standards here in the US for the agricultural sector. It is also the organization that represents the United States at the International Standards Organization, or ISO, for agricultural topics. And I am really fortunate to be a member of some of those delegations as well. The other way that I am involved in ASABE primarily is I am on the committee that organizes and runs the ASABE International Quarter Scale Tractor Student Design Competition. This is an engineering design competition for college students where they have to work with other students at their school to design and build a small tractor, think kind of like an oversized lawnmower, that they then take to Peoria, Illinois every May to compete against each other in the best designed, the most durable, the most maneuverable, and of course, the best pulling tractor. I have been involved in this event since my undergrad degree, and it is one of the most important things my family does every year. I am really passionate about giving engineering students a way to grow their skills while innovating in the agriculture space. The competition allows students from all of the different schools to get together and share ideas, which is really important because they are the future of our industry and our research. The program is certainly a gateway to the wider ASABE community that we're all going to belong to throughout our careers.
Yeah, well, that's the competition definitely sounds super interesting for a high school student like me, for example. And we have another audience Q&A question for Mrs. Noy's class in Orlin. What can students do now to prepare for a future in STEM careers?
I think that's a great question. And the thing I would say is programming and coding. There's just not a lot of systems left out there that don't have some kind of sensor, some kind of software, some kind of feedback, making that product more efficient, smarter, more compatible. And so, even if you're kind of a gearhead like me, knowing the basics of programming and coding really makes engineering a much more exciting space to be in.
Yeah, well, I can agree. I think as a high schooler, I'm very gear-headed too. I like a lot of mechanical, but sometimes you gotta learn just a little bit of the basics because coding is for sure in everything now. And for our next question, do you have any mentors who inspired you to pursue the path you are on today?
What a good question. I would say that there are three people that really are at the top of my list that really have made an impact in my career. The first is my dad. He was the first person to help me understand that everything happens in the world around us. It can be explained, and that I could be one of those people to use those explanations to make something new. In addition, my high school history teacher, Mr. Hitchcock, taught me that people's feelings and beliefs are just as important as facts. Communication with other people is the key to understanding them, and understanding people is the first step to convincing them to join your team. And everybody needs a team. And then I would say the last person is my master's professor, Dr. Kreutz. He believes that engineering is about the big picture and that everything is connected. A solution to one problem today is a springboard to solving a bigger problem tomorrow if you are willing to consider things from another viewpoint.
Yeah, that's I think those mentors definitely gave you a great overall idea. In thinking of the students joining us today and in the future, what is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Oh, try all the things. Almost no one you meet is going to go professional in whatever the thing is. So don't let fear or an embarrassment be, of being like bad at something stop you from trying. Different experiences will mean a bigger network of friends and gives you a new way of looking at problems. So just go try the thing.
Definitely. And we have another audience Q&A question. It's how have you grown in your career from Miss Werner's class in Apple Valley, and how has this job encouraged you to be a change maker?
I would say that this job is to help our talented design teams consider the requirements that our products have to meet so that we can provide our solutions to as many customers as possible. When new technologies come around, I have to work with others in our industry to find common ground on the key requirements that our products should meet. I may not have my name on a single part on our tractors, but I know that I use my knowledge of standards and regulations to help put every single tractor that leaves our factory into the market. Uh, People buy our products to use in their agricultural businesses so that they can grow their products, pay their workers, and then raise their families. I'm really thrilled to be just a small part of that whole John Deere team that makes that possible.
Yeah. When you were in middle school, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I thought I wanted to go into politics. I didn't ever want to be the person elected, but I wanted to be the person on their staff that was an expert in some kind of policy. Like the chief of staff to the UN ambassador sounded so cool. But now I'm an engineer and I get to work with governments around the world. So it's pretty awesome that I found a job where I kind of get to do both.
Yeah, you got best of both worlds, being an engineer and still being able to, talk to those government officials. And what is one skill that technicians and engineers of the future should start developing now?
I already mentioned, I definitely think programming and coding is one of the things that is really key for no matter what industry you're in.
Yeah. I think again, just reiterating that it's super important to at least be good at like at least be able to learn the basics of certain things so that you never know you could use those basics in something else later on. And what would you tell kids who maybe think that they're not out to pursue engineering or are looking at an alternative pathways to STEM?
What I would say is that just because you're good at math and science doesn't mean you have to be an engineer. So, being an engineer is something that you should want to do. There are lots of other important jobs that use those same skills in different ways, like pharmacists, accountants, and even farmers. But if you think you're not a good fit for engineering because you like art, or because you look a certain way, or because you enjoy cooking, or you race motorcycles, or maybe you just really love working with people, then you're wrong. Stereotypes are ugly and they hurt everyone. There is no right way to be an engineer. The thing that unites us as engineers isn't our personalities or our hobbies, it is finding happiness and thinking logically to solve a problem and then telling other people the answer. Good companies value people with these different perspectives and experiences because it gives them more ideas and ways to solve problems for their customers.
Yeah, and what else do you like to do for fun outside of your work?
I play ice hockey very badly, but I do love playing it. It's a good way to spend a Sunday night.
Wow, that sounds super interesting. Ice hockey. I think it's the first ever person I met that plays ice hockey. It sounds super interesting. If you could have any superpower, what would you choose and then why?
I think I would pick fast healing like Wolverine. I kind of have a why not attitude about trying new things like ice hockey, which means that I end up with a lot of sore muscles and scrapes. I would love to go on more adventures knowing that it won't hurt in the morning.
Yeah, for sure. You don't have to go to work with a sore ankle or with something hurting. And what is one skill that you haven't quite mastered yet, but you would definitely like to?
Oh, that one's easy. Knitting and crocheting. Every time I think, yes, I have learned all the skills, I find a new pattern that uses a technique I've never even heard of. I love yarn crafts. I've been doing them since I was 10 or 11, but I don't think I will ever feel like an expert because there's just so much to learn.
Yeah, that we have a crocheting club at our school, and they do some beautiful things, and it doesn't stop. There's so many patterns and so many things that you could do with that. And what is something you've done that you are really proud of?
Something I'm really proud of is going back to school in 2020 and getting my undergraduate degree in German. I did it online in the evenings and it took me 4 years, but I finished it and now I can speak German. This does
Wow.
help me at work because most of the group that I work in actually sits in Germany, but it also gave me an amazing opportunity to learn a whole new culture, history, food, and music.
Wow, German. That's a super interesting language to learn. Definitely something that not a lot of people have. And I understand you live on a farm. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I do live on a family farm, and so it comes from my husband's family. So we raise corn and beans. We do farm with John Deere products, and we also raise just a smaller flock of chickens, kind of more for just us and our family. So that's what we spend most of our evenings and our weekends doing. We're about to start planting our corn and beans, so it's about to get very exciting on the farm.
If you had a time machine, what time period would you choose to visit and then why?
I am actually going to say I'm going to pick Victorian London during the mini ice age because I just have read these descriptions of the ice fairs where the Thames froze over and they had this just huge street festival on the river. And there's paintings of there and there's descriptions. I would just love to experience that for myself.
Yeah, that sounds definitely super interesting to go back to that time period. And now my favorite question to end it is a fill in the blank question. It's I am a blank and finish the sentence with one word to describe yourself and then explain why you chose that word.
I am a learner. I am choosing that word because I'm really a collector of knowledge. I am always listening to how-to podcasts and reading history books. One of my favorite parts about being a mom myself is the chance to learn about what my kids are interested in. I have learned beautiful viola music with my oldest, all about cheerleading with my middle, and then more than I thought there was to know about exoskeleton creatures with my youngest. I think curious people are the most interesting people to be around, and I really hate not knowing something.
Yeah, I think for all of the people watching us, definitely be curious, explore, and just be curious overall. And I think that's it. Well, I believe that's all the questions we have time for on this chat. Thank you, Zita, for joining us today. I have learned a lot.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Definitely. We also want to give a big thanks to ASABE for partnering with us on today's episode. Also, a huge thank to all of you for tuning in. And to learn more about agriculture engineering careers, go to Discover E's website at discoverE.org. And be sure to join our next Chat with Changemakers. Tune in on Thursday, April 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern, when Enrique, that would be me, will chat with Dr. Terry Anderson, a systems engineer at Northrop Grumman. See you next time. Thank you.